All right, welcome everybody to the Lakers Legacy Podcast, where LeBron may be the king, but last night in Dallas, Luka was the true homecoming king, or homecoming dawn, if you will. So wipe those teardrops, because Luka just dropped a 45 piece on your head. Thanks for everything. You're welcome. I'm your host, Jonathan Hernandez, and I'm joined by my co host, Tommy Alexander. Tommy, the Lakers have officially clinched a playoff berth without needing to go into the play in for the first time since the 2019 2020 championship season. The playoffs are next week. But first, it was a big emotional game for Luka Doncic last night with him returning to Dallas for the first time since the big trade. Were you nervous about how he would respond, especially after seeing how wrecked he looked while watching his tribute video?
So this game was like it was kind of emotional even for me to watch, and I have no tie to Luca being on the Mavericks. I mean, like maybe if I was a Mavericks fan, you would think that would impact me, more. But it was a pretty emotional situation. You could tell that Luca wasn't really prepared for that aspect of it. But I, I mean, what we saw was, well, again, this guy continues to do this, but he stacks like the craziest things you've ever seen on top of each other. So I don't think I've ever seen a player cry in a reunion or like, coming back, because usually certainly a player of this magnitude, you're choosing to leave most of the time. So I don't think I've seen a player that emotional in the return, and then to like literally cry, get off to like a wonky start where I don't know, the first 3 minutes or so he looks sort of out of sorts, which makes sense given that he literally just cried before the game. And to go from that to putting 45 points on the Mavericks head, I mean, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing the place that this guy can go mentally to like elevate his game to those levels. Like, and it doesn't even look like he's trying. And the crazy thing is, like, for most guys, it's such a small margin for error in terms of, JJ Redick has talked about this with respect to himself as a player. But these guys are routine based, and oh, a guy didn't eat his normal salad before the game and then he has like an off night, and then like it just feels like with Luca you can throw the entire world at him and he'll just continue to stack it on top of his shoulders and carry the team, and that's what he did in the game last night.
Yeah, I thought it was funny because I felt like Luca missed half of his own tribute video because his head was like plastered to his towel for half of the time because he was so emotional. And yeah, when I saw that, we haven't been able to watch Luca for that long. So I knew Luca was a gamer. I did not know how much of a gamer he was until last night because to your point, that was an unprecedented situation that not many superstars have ever been in. So to question whether he'd come out guns blazing, I don't think any of us would have doubted or any of us would have, been surprised if he came out sluggish, or out of it. And yet by the first half he had 31 points. And Luca just has
Yeah.
this sixth sense about knowing when to go for the jugular. It's very Mamba mentality in that way. And I recently saw an interview of Sasha Vujacic of all people comparing Luka Doncic to Kobe. And I think last night we saw the full, like, how emblematic of that statement Luka was. So yeah, in today's episode, we're just going to talk more about Luka's 45-point performance, his homecoming performance versus the Dallas Mavericks, and talk about some other players as well and the Lakers' game plan against Anthony Davis. And then the second half of this episode, we'll talk about the Lakers gearing up for the playoffs and how quote unquote real we think their playoff contendery status is. But yeah, let's talk about the game last night because again, 31 points. I think he was like 11 of 16 from the field at halftime. I joked on
Yeah.
Twitter, but I was like, oh man, Luka had a great revenge party against Dallas last night with 31 points. And then I was like, oh, wait, we still have a half left to go. It's crazy. Um, but The threes he was hitting in that first half, particularly
Yeah,
the crossover step back three on AD, that play alone was kind of emblematic of why you do this trade 11 out of 10 times, I guess. And it was understandable at the time that, Lakers fans were in their feelings, including me, about losing, such a diehard bleed purple and gold Laker like Anthony Davis. But that play and last night's game was sort of an entire encapsulation of this is why you do that trade over and over again. As good as Anthony Davis is defensively, and granted, he was not at 100% last night. I know that.
yeah,
But as good as Anthony Davis is defensively, he still is a guy who needs shots created for him. And he's
oh
still a
yeah.
guy who can get schemed out. And he's not going to take over a game offensively for you unless his mid range shot or jump shot is flowing. Last night it wasn't. And we can put a bunch of caveats for Anthony Davis's game last night, including the fact that he didn't have a point guard to get him the ball. But again, um, the way that the Lakers, first of all, the game plan that the Lakers had for AD was great. They employed the Jokic rules on him the same way that they did in their first win with Luka in Denver, where there was a lot of fronting in the post. They sent a lot of doubles, triples, and traps. Every time AD, even before he made a dribble in the paint, the Lakers already converged on him. AD only had 13 field goal attempts and 4 turnovers. And to be fair to AD, Jokic didn't handle this well either, and he had a full complement of his players with him. Whereas again, AD only had Dinwiddie and Najee Marshall feeding him the ball. That said, the Lakers did a great job shutting AD down. Although he did have a really nice one-handed sling pass to Gafford on the move somewhere in the second half. But to my point about the Luke and AD trade, for AD, once he's trapped, he kind of malfunctions, and it didn't help that he was playing power forward and the floor was a little bit shrunk. For AD, once he's trapped, it's kind of over from there. For Luka, if Luka's being trapped, the game has just begun for Luka. That's when he goes to work, and that's what he did last night. So before we get into any of the other guys, like, what stood out to you about the game? Anything stood out to you about what Luka did last night, apart from the ethereal, he's just a gamer and Mamba mentality showed itself in full force? Any plays that stood out to you, et cetera, et cetera?
Basically everything we've said. Luka is unbelievable. I was, texting with my cousin. He lives in Dallas, grew up in Dallas. He's a Mavs fan. And so he feels about the trade as I imagine most Mavs fans feel about the trade. But I was texting with him earlier today and I was like, the last time I've consistently been this excited for this reason to watch the Lakers was, I mean, honestly, like when Kobe was in his prime, like there have been
Mhm.
different reasons to be excited about watching the Lakers over the years. But for a guy, like to just see a guy who every night, LeBron is like the master of consistency. That's always been his thing in his career. And he has his amazing breakout games, or not breakout, but he has his amazing games where he just goes and dominating games, I should say. But most nights he's going to give you what he always gives you, which is like his consistent 25, 7, and 7. I mean, his career averages, right? 25, 7, and 7. Like you're getting that from LeBron, and it's going to be effective and it's going to be efficient. Luka every single night does things on the court that just blow your mind. And
Mhm.
it makes every game a must watch. I mean, even the games where his shot is off, he has like a 6 for 19 night. It's still worth watching. You still want him to take all those shots. And the last time I remember feeling like that about a player was Kobe in his prime. I mean, literally like Kobe circa
Yeah.
2005 to 2008, like where you just never knew like one night he was going to score 80. One night he was going to set the 3 point record. Like every night he was doing some insane stuff. And that's what it's like watching Luka. And we're so lucky, I feel like, to have this on our team for hopefully the next decade or so. But yeah, I mean, Lucas showed, I think, between this last stretch of 3 games. I mean, he's shown this throughout the whole time that he's been on the team, but particularly against these, in some recent matchups against very elite teams defensively, who are elite, by the way, for different reasons. I mean, like, Oklahoma City has waves of tough wing defenders who are going to pick up full court, and are going to foul you on every possession and bait the refs into like calling it, right? I mean, that's their strategy. We've seen teams like this over the years, many teams over the years that play like this, where the defensive sort of mindset is foul on every possession because they're only going to call it half the time, right? And OKC is one of those teams, and Luka takes on those guys, is being like hounded full court. Everything in your brain is telling you this guy's going to have no legs to get the shot up by the time he's done with this pressure. And then he brings the ball up and just drains 35-foot jumpers at, like over two defenders. And then you have like Dallas, who also has the physical perimeter defense, but on top of that, has probably the best big man. I mean, when everyone's healthy as they were last night, probably the best defensive big man rotation, or one of the best defensive big man rotations in the league. And so they're taking away anything you want to do inside the 3-point line, and it doesn't matter because Luka figures out ways to score still. So these are the reasons, to your point, you make that trade 11 out of 10 times. These are the reasons why every year that you have Luka on your team, as long as you have a supporting cast of like energy and effort guys, you might not even need a second star sometimes, right? But as long as you have like a decent supporting cast of energy effort guys, like Luka is going to give you a chance to win pretty much every single night. Because what he does, you just can't guard it. It's like there's no defense when he's taking step back 30-foot, 3-pointers over elite defenders. Like there's nothing else you can do. You can try to get the ball out of his hands. He still figures out a way to like, rocket a pass like across from like the court. Like he'll be pinned in the corner, double teamed at the half court line, in the corner of the court there. And so it's like he's surrounded by 4 defenders because he's got like the baseline and the half court line, and he'll like jump and just rocket like a 40-foot bullet pass straight to the corner for a wide open 3. I mean, you can't do anything against him. And so, yeah, it's more and more impressive to watch the more I see him. And his shot is starting to fall at a higher efficiency rate that sort of is more in line with his season average, career averages. It's all really good signs heading into the playoffs. And I'm just glad he's on our team for the playoffs.
Yeah, you almost have to chop off his arms if you just want to ensure that he's not getting off a good pass, because he always finds a way to do so. It's the wanted curve the bullet mechanic with Luka Doncic all the time, even if he's trapped. Yeah, 45 points. Second time he's scored 45 points for the Lakers this year. The first time was against Milwaukee. This is a season high 45 points that he's tied and done 3 times this season. And yeah, it was a great game overall. It was a little bit close there in the second half, but we pulled away. LeBron James had a quiet 27 points. His 3-point shot wasn't hitting, but he did everything else. And one of the plays of the night didn't involve Luka, but it involved Austin Reeves throwing up an errant lob once again to 40-year-old LeBron, and LeBron hammering it down with one hand. Austin is going to get this dude killed at some point, but for now, it's been fun to watch. And yeah, that was a much needed win for the Lakers because, as I mentioned at the top, it not only clinched the Lakers' playoff berth, it made sure that we are not play-in bound. And for the first time, we're not going to be in the play-in. And so we can kind of just, I don't want to say sit back and watch. We kind of have to sit back and watch to see everything else that plays out with the 4 other teams we're in a race against. But for the first time, the Lakers are going to have legitimate rest next week, which is huge. So, why don't we take it to break here? When we return, let's talk about the Lakers' playoff contention chances and what we've seen from them the last few games as a total unit. But before we take it to break, let's first talk about our sponsors for today, Underdog Fantasy. Now that we've entered the home stretch of the basketball season, when your favorite stars score buckets, we are alley-ooping you an opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog Fantasy. To play, simply choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats, i.e. points, assists, rebounds, and more. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into $1,000 just with your hoops knowledge. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Their app has over 100,000 5-star reviews and millions of players, so don't miss out on all the fun. From personal experience, the Underdog app interface has been very easy and intuitive for me to use. They do a good job of organizing and curating all of their contests so you know exactly what's going on and where to look. So, if you're a beginner and just looking to get started, definitely try out the Underdog Fantasy app. I am currently up $55 overall on the year, Tommy, and with playoff ball heating up, I am ready to make it rain. So, why not join in on the rain dance? Download Download the Underdog app and sign up now using promo code LEGACY to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with promo code LEGACY. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. All right, let's pitch to our sponsors and we'll catch you guys after the turn. All right, so we are back. Tommy, how real are the Lakers as contenders? So over the last 10 or so games, their net rating numbers aren't as impressive as you'd think. They are 12th in overall net rating. Do you know who the number one team is in net rating is, if you had to make a guess? It is. It's crazy.
It's
Yeah,
the
so the Clippers,
Clippers.
yeah. The Clippers are number
They've been
one.
red hot.
So
Yeah,
maybe we
that
don't
was
want to
that
face
was.
them in the 3-6 matchup. The Lakers, though, are okay. The Lakers in defensive rating are not too good. They're 20th over the last 10. But offensive rating wise, they are third in the league, right behind the Clippers and the Celtics. So they definitely have some things to work with. And if we're just kind of extrapolating things out and contextualizing things properly using the eye test, Rui Hachimura not being in a few games, us having to play OKC on the road back to back. Yeah, I guess what do you take from the last few games and what do you have things crystallized for you with regards to, yeah, I guess how real do you think this Lakers team is as a contender? Because obviously we just beat the Oklahoma City Thunder in Oklahoma City pretty handily that first game when everybody was healthy, including Rui Hachimura. And Oklahoma City is obviously the number one Western Conference team. Add caveats here and there that they have things locked up. Maybe they weren't locked in. And then obviously the second game, I thought we were going to get demolished. One, I thought that we were going to rest players. We didn't, and we came out guns blazing still. Now, we gave up 80 points in the first half of that game, but then we held Oklahoma City to like 14 points in the third quarter. So, yeah, what do you take away from the last few games? Because Austin's continued to cook, last night notwithstanding. I feel like this has been the best that Vanderbilt has looked energy-wise and defensively, especially the last few games versus OKC. And then Rui Hachimura has been super impressive on the defensive end of the floor, and his versatility has continued to shine with regards to his combination of strength, physicality, and then mobility on the perimeter, in tandem with the Lakers, defensive scheme helping him out as well. And then in between there, you have Gabe Advando shooting the lights out from three in a couple of those games. Obviously, versus Dallas, they fell back to earth, as they typically will do every 3 or 4 games or so. But overall, I feel like the team has really gelled defensively, even if the numbers over the last 10 don't really say so. I'm guessing if we looked at the last 5, that number will have risen in terms of defensive rating. But yeah, kind of convoluted. But yeah, how real do you think the Lakers are as playoff contenders? And do the last few games sort of give you confidence with regards to having played the number one Western Conference team in OKC? Maybe should have won 2 games in OKC if Luka hadn't gotten ejected. And then obviously, coming in with that, emotional game against Dallas, still winning that game as well.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the last 10 games collectively, but certainly pieces of the 10 games, I think, have given me some optimism. I mean, I think the answer here, the short answer is I think we can contend. I think we are contenders. I think we can compete with pretty much any team in the league. Um, on most nights. Now that said, I don't think we have as big of a margin for error as, what I'll call the true contenders. And what I view as sort of the true contenders, I mean, it's going to be easy, but it's the 3 60-win teams, right? I mean, I don't know if the Celtics have actually hit 60 yet, but the Celtics, the Cavs, and OKC, because they've consistently done this stuff over 82 games. And I know the playoffs are a different beast, but when you look back at our season, it has been up and down, and there's a variety of reasons and factors and caveats we can put on all of that. But we have had stretches where we've been a top five offense. We've been had stretches where we've been a top five defense. We haven't had stretches where we've consistently, for a significant amount of time, or even like 10 games, been top five in both at the same time. And you sort of need to do that to be like a real contender, right? You need to have like a significant stretch where your net rating is like top five usually. Um, all that said, none of these other teams have LeBron and Luka, and when you have those two guys, like it sort of raises the ceiling
Yeah.
for your chances. So I think what it's going to come, our upside, I think in the playoffs is going to come down to our defense. And I think our defense, if you think about defense, it's execution and effort. And our effort has sort of been up and down, I'd say, over the course of the season, which I think is normal, by the way, over an 82 game season, especially with a team that doesn't have a ton of guys, or certainly when the season started, at least, didn't have a ton of guys that were known as like career elite defenders. So, effort might go up and down, execution, you want to be there. And so when you think about the playoffs, the effort is not going to be an issue. Guys are going to be rested. Guys understand the playoffs. Everybody ramps themselves up, especially on LeBron teams. I mean, even those years where we went 8-1, or sorry, 1-8 against Denver in consecutive years in the playoffs, it was not for a lack of effort. Um, the entire team ramped up their intensity level in those series, and I have no doubts that they'll do so in the playoffs this year. But the execution is the key, right? We don't have sort of the excess of elite defenders to get away with some mishaps in terms of execution. Everybody needs to be perfectly rotating and perfectly anticipating the next passes. Everybody needs to be crashing the boards. We can't be giving up multiple possessions with a team that's, struggling to get even one stop at times. So, you know, can we consistently, like on offense, you have no doubts. You have Luka, you have LeBron, you have Austin. Guys generally just like to play offense more, and there are set plays, right? And so the execution on those sets you think is going to be there on offense. On defense, we just have not shown that we can consistently execute, consistently have guys not miss rotations, consistently have guys not miss box outs. Every other game, it feels like, you see the clips went around, right? But in the OKC win, uh, although we only we held them to under 100, which was amazing, right? Because they're a top. I mean, they are literally the number one offense. Rui missed a box out, right? And the clip went viral of LeBron yelling at him. We had guys missing rotations on the perimeter and OKC missed shots. When the playoff intensity ramps up for everybody, like you, it's not going to be the case that you can rely on guys missing shots anymore. And I know that's an obvious statement, but that's I think key is our defensive execution going to be there game in, game out over the course of an entire series, over the course of an entire playoff run? I think it can be, but it's going to be close. And so, you'll see these wild swings, I think, for us in terms of performances. And I don't think that's atypical, by the way, especially for teams that are not like running away with elite numbers like the three teams I mentioned earlier. But you're going to see in the playoffs, I think, sort of what you saw in the OKC series, I say, but those series of two games we played against them, where we might have a game where we come out and just blow things out, and we have LeBron and Luka comes out and decides in the first half the game's over, and that's it. And we're also going to have games where that doesn't happen. And in the games where that doesn't happen, is our defensive execution going to be there to keep us close enough so that Luka can try to do
Mhm.
something crazy at the end? I think that's what our sort of upside is sort of capped at this point.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think, though, the one thing that we haven't seen, because to your point, we have seen stretches of us being a top five offensive rated team, a top five defensive rated team. And we've seen a smattering of games, especially during that 9 wins out of 11 games stretch where, everybody was locked in from the number one guy all the way down to rotation number nine guy. The one thing we haven't seen, though, even in those like even in that 9 game win streak, is what happens when every game turns into a must win game, Because even in that stretch of 9 games, we had lapses because we were playing lesser opponents, and we had lapses within those games as well, within quarters, etc. And for me, the biggest thing that gives me confidence is something very ethereal and intangible, but you mentioned it. LeBron and Luka during this time of the year literally bring the thunder, or no pun intended. They literally bring the thunder. They were made for these moments. If that game versus the Dallas Mavericks last night wasn't any indication, that's kind of a preview of what we're going to see from Luka day in, day out, And we've kind of seen him be consistent throughout this stretch as well, but it's just human nature when on a random Tuesday we have to go up against the Charlotte Hornets that Luka's not going to be as locked in as he would be if this were a playoff game.
Right.
And I have seen too often when LeBron and Luka lock in, everyone else locks in around them. And this is the time of the year when every game is literally a must win game. And all of those low energy games on a random Tuesday night versus the Chicago Bulls, when we tend to just completely fall apart and give up in 10-minute stretches, I think and I hope those days are over, because even if you look at last year's playoffs with Anthony Davis versus the Denver Nuggets, like every single one of those 5 games were close, And it speaks to the natural level intensity ramp up that I think our stars and our core reliable role players can sort of reach. And now that we have a second LeBron or a second Kobe in Luka Doncic, I'm very excited to see literally what every single playoff game looks like. And also, this is when role players like Gabe Vincent and DFS shine as well, when things get more physical, when things grind to a halt, et cetera, et cetera. So I I share your concerns about whether or not or how well we consistently stack up against some of these other heavy hitters like the Clippers and the Golden State Warriors, because there are some matchups that I think, I'm a little bit wary of. But if I take if I look at some of our best games in the last 3 months or last 2 months with Luka Doncic, and I extrapolate that out to a more consistent series, I don't know. I can get very encouraged very quickly. So
Yeah. And I think another factor here is like, by the way, like the reason that I know that we always like to look at these sample sizes of like how, oh, well, this changed 20 games ago. And since that changed, this is how we've, looked in terms of our analytics. The analytics are heavily influenced by strength of schedule. That's why the season analytics tend to be like the better indicator. Again, that nothing is perfect, right? Because things change over the course of a season. But, for example, I mean, OKC has been the number one defense all year, and they did not look like the number one defense against us in those two games, right? I mean, we
yeah,
scored 126 against them in the first one, and we were on pace to exceed that before Luka got ejected in the second one. So, the thing that 2 games showed me is that, there's going to be punches thrown in the playoffs. And if you could take a punch like that, like you sneak a game against OKC who has home court advantage in a playoff series, and you could come out and take a punch like that in the next home game against them and like damn near beat them again. I mean, that's gonna do a lot for you in a playoff
yeah.
series.
Well, the other thing that that game showed me in tandem with the Dallas Mavericks game is you cannot play multiple bigs against the Lakers, no matter how good or how all-star Hall of Famery they are. You can maybe have one of those bigs if he's Anthony Davis, but you can't have a non-shooting big in Isaiah Hardenstein and then also pair him with Chet Holmgren, who's kind of like a power forward, even small forward, masquerading as a big, you know, and because Luka will cut those dudes up. And then on top of it, we have these physical, strong bull forwards like Rui Hachimura and DFS who could also muck it up as well. The last thing I'll end this episode with is an interesting stat. So last night, I saw this on Twitter. Scroll past my timeline. This is from @AlexHoops_. But last night in the Dallas Mavericks game, the Luka, LeBron, Reeves, Rui DFS lineup in 18 minutes had a plus 78.1 net rating.
Yeesh.
That's crazy. Now,
That's crazy.
obviously, the Dallas Mavericks aren't a great team to sort of gauge things against, but let's look at the entire season. Well, okay, so let's see. With Luka Doncic, the number one five-man lineup for the Lakers in terms of net rating is Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, Dorian Finney-Smith, Rui Hachimura, and LeBron James. They are a plus 22.6. Since Luka has been traded to the Lakers, given the amount of possessions they have had, at least 100 possessions, this is the Lakers' number one lineup. So very formidable, quote unquote, small but big lineup the Lakers have going for them. Interestingly enough, the number one lineup overall for the season is Austin Reeves, Max Christie, Dorian Finney-Smith, LeBron, and AD. But so far in the Luka era, Luka, AR, Finney-Smith, Rui, and LeBron have been our number one five-man lineup by far, net rating wise. So something to look forward to. We'll get into like playoff talk as we, when we figure out who we're actually playing, and we'll get into which team scares the most, et cetera, et cetera. But for now, Luka Doncic, he's the Don. What a homecoming. Shed your tears. Luka is here. With that said, we will catch you guys next time. Follow us on Twitter @LakersLegacyPod. Please also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a 5-star rating on the Apple Podcast app and Spotify app as well. And yeah, Tommy, I will catch you later when we preview the playoffs. Playoffs.
Playoffs?
Playoffs. All right, see ya.
Peace.
Bye.